For the week of March 12th, I have news, analysis, and outlook to share with you for the following stocks: Palantir, Tesla, Lemonade, Square, Beyond Meat, and Bitcoin. And of course, timestamps and chapters are available in the description if you want to skip around to any sections that you may find more interesting. So we'll start with the weekly overview. I just typed in these numbers for weekly performance, price, and market cap for all of these stocks, and I included the S&P 500 at the bottom. So let's get going with Palantir. Starting it off, a very strong week, 14.6% positive, finishing the week with a share price of $26.92 and a market cap just under $50 billion at $49.06. Personally, I'd love to add to my Palantir position under $50 billion. I think the stock is still in the buy range, in my opinion. We have seen a bounce back from the low 20s, but I think Palantir, as you'll see from the chart here, is still a long ways away from the 30s and above, even despite the bounce back we had this week with the 14% and coming off of the panic selling. So what contributed on the news side of things? Well, there were three stories pretty much. We had Palantir launching their proprietary ERP suite to the AWS platform for cost savings. I talked about that in my own video, kind of broke it down and how this is actually really important for this side of Palantir software to become accessible to a new audience, to more clients that wouldn't otherwise be using Palantir software, and kind of rein them into the Palantir ecosystem, as it were, as well as just expanding its offering. Not necessarily a huge financial driver, but definitely something to keep an eye on. And then Palantir starting a new partnership with a new company. On their investor relations page, they call this a long-term strategic partnership. I think we'll keep seeing these contracts and partnerships signed pretty much every week for the foreseeable future, and pretty much for all of time, I would guess, because Palantir is all about increasing their sales force and increasing their partnerships and their client base, because that is what powers themselves as the company. And we also had the announcement that they will be holding a second part to their demo day series dubbed Double Click, and that will be on April 14th in 2021. Moving on to Tesla, another very strong performing stock, up 15.6% in the positive direction, finishing out just under $700 per share, $693.73, with a market cap of $665.88 billion. So Tesla would be another one I would be looking to add to under $700. Let's take a look at the chart here. Of course, it is down from all-time highs of around $900 per share, plummeted, absolutely fell off a cliff, struggling very much all the way down to about $540 or so, and we've seen that strong bounce back in the past week, hovering around $700. We'll see how the stock does from here, but in terms of the news side of things, what could be driving the stock going forward, I've selected a few stories to pay attention to. The first of which is Elon and Tesla releasing the FSD beta very shortly to the entire fleet, or I should say those willing to press the download button on the FSD beta in their cars, which should be by the end of next week or the week after, if they are actually going to be in line with their timing. So why is that important? Well, it's going to be very important to see how the fleet is able to handle such a drastic step up from the previous only 1,000 beta testers of the full self-driving beta, and if Tesla is confident enough to make this step to increase the beta testing group by a substantial amount, tens upon tens of thousands of more people just ready to download the beta and test it out and really send back a lot of self-driving data to the mothership. That is not only great for Tesla, but it's great for the public perception of full self-driving, and we'll get to see how well it performs and maybe wake up some analysts on the full self-driving side of the business. Number two, we heard from Cathie Wood recently. Their ARK Invest Tesla price target, revised version of that, will be out very shortly, next week or the week after, should be by the end of the month, and that will be a much increased target. There's no saying if it will move the stock substantially, because they've already said it will be a much higher target from the previous matrix that they provided, but Personally, as a big fan of the company and the stock, and the research that ARK Invested does, I'm excited to see what they have to say. And I will, of course, make a video when the time comes. The third one, not really any news yet, but we could be getting a tax credit renewal and the expansion from that, from the Democratic side of the government that we now have, and especially considering that the stimulus was just approved, maybe we could get a more focus towards the renewable and sustainable side of government action going forward. Alright, now let's talk about Lemonade stock, another strong performing stock. Pretty much all growth stocks did bounce back this week. Lemonade up 12.9%, closing out the week above $104.54 and with a market cap of $6.41 billion. Lemonade is a stock that really has gotten murdered over the past 3 months. It was at over $180 per share and it fell down to around $80 per share most recently in the crash, and it has in the past week bounced back over $100, showing some resilience to get back up above the key psychological $100 level. Let's take a look at the news. Not too much. It did have a very strong day on Thursday, I believe. Not really any news on that day specifically, except for growth stocks having a strong day and pushing Lemonade higher. But earlier on in the week, Lemonade did get an underperform rating from Bank of America, questioning revenue guidance. I'm not really going to get into that here, but just thought I would share that. And also, we got this note from the Motley Fool that one analyst sees a potential 25% upside, considering how much the stock has fallen off recently. And now hopping over to Square stock, a positive 11.2%, bringing the share price to $242.11, with a market cap over $110 billion to $110.07. Looking at Square stock, it is also off of all-time highs like all growth stocks, and with its all-time highs around $275 per share, and it did fall most recently to under $200 per share, and it got down to like $192 or so, but saw some very strong support around the $200 level. As always, personally, my buy target, I do not own any Square currently. I have in the past, but my buy target for Square is as close as I can possibly get it to $200, because there is a lot of support at that level, and it does seem that Square always bounces back from the $200 level. And now we see it there with the circle. It is much above the $200 level. So any news for Square this week? Well, not too much, just analysts trying to come to terms with Square buying the Tidal music service, and that acquisition did kind of drive the stock a little bit lower upon the announcement, but it could give some tailwinds to Cash App and the associated interfaces. So not too much Square news, I must say, unless I missed anything, but I think it was definitely a strong week for Square, coming off of its slightly disappointing earnings from even before this week and the announcement of the Tidal acquisition. It's of course getting a little bit of a boost from Bitcoin doing well. I'll get to that shortly, but let's move on to Beyond Meat stock, another stock that I don't own, but I do want to follow it and add it to my portfolio when I get the chance. It had a solid week, a positive 3.6%. It did beat the S&P 500, but not as high performing as the growth technology stocks did, bringing its share price to $142.45 and its market cap to $8.97 billion, just under $9 billion. If we take a look at the key features of the Beyond Meat chart, we'll see it in January had a share price of just above $100, was kind of struggling, languishing in the post-2020 and into 2021 tax season sell-off, and then we did have a spike. I forget exactly what the news was, but it brought them up to the $190 level, and we've seen a little bit of a sell-off. Earnings was a little bit of a disappointment. They have had some big partnerships though, and now we see the stock bouncing back a little bit from lows from the broader market sell-off, and to, as I said, $142. So I'd personally be happy with owning some Beyond Meat at these levels, but let's take a look at the news. So the Beyond Meat shares did jump on the expanded partnership with Walmart, and that's a pretty big thing. Any partnerships that Beyond Meat can get with any retailers or restaurants, those are always very important, and Walmart, especially considering how large they are, that is clearly a pivotal expansion in my eyes. And then we have this Seeking Alpha little title here that Beyond Meat is seen as the beneficiary of an environmental focus. I can definitely agree with that. I'm interested in them mainly because of their environmental focus and how sustainable foods I think will be huge going forward. I'll probably make a video on Beyond Meat soon because I think there is a lot to share on that front. So now let's take a look at Bitcoin having a positive 11.6% to $57,113.44 and bringing the market cap above $1 trillion to 1.07 trillion as I record this. Bitcoin breaking out to all-time highs. For a low on the 3-month chart, we'd have to go all the way back to December when Bitcoin was under $30,000 per coin, but we have seen some very, very strong performance, very strong resilience in this entire 3-month chart. Of course, it hit a wall at the previous $56,000 level, triggered a little bit of a sell-off, and now we see it bouncing back to an all-time high currently to close out this stock market trading week. So very good news for Bitcoin holders. And the Bitcoin news, MicroStrategy buying even more Bitcoin. Another day, another Bitcoin buy from MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor. And yes, Bitcoin nears record highs. It actually hit record highs already in yet another surge as what Bloomberg is calling a risk-on rally starts to accelerate. So I just wanted to include Bitcoin there. And of course, to close it all out, the S&P 500 contributing 2.57% for the weekly performance with a price of $3,943.34. So to wrap this up, I'll just give you some final thoughts from the market overall, the growth sectors, the technology stocks. I think the recovery is definitely in progress. Last week, the week before, we saw some real blood in the markets, and this week was a very nice return to a little bit of normalcy, seeing some green in the markets, seeing some stocks turn green and not sell off the entire week. But it is important to stress we are not out of the woods yet. There is still some turmoil in the markets, and the macro environment could stay dicey, and I'd expect discounts from all the growth stocks to stay off of all-time highs for the next couple, if not few, months going forward. I don't think Tesla will rocket to $900 in the coming weeks. I could definitely be wrong on that, but I think we could see a steady return to all-time highs in the coming months. But I wouldn't expect that to happen immediately, especially this sell-off was kind of a rotation out of the growth stocks. We could see the rotation back in. I'm expecting that, just not immediately. So I hope these 23 slides were all insightful to you, and drop a like if you found value here and want me to continue this analysis every week. Until next time.